What's up, guys? Brett Appley here from DailyFanMMA.com, back with another UFC Quick Picks on the Mayo Media Network. We have UFC Las Vegas this weekend. Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili in the main event. Another really awesome main event, I should say. 14 fights on the slate. Should be a fun one. As usual, I'm going to give you my favorite cash game play, tournament play, salary play, and a matchup I like as well from a DraftKings perspective. Before I do, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below. Let's see, why don't you give me your favorite option in the 8K range? I think there's a lot of high upside targets. Let's go, you know what? Let's go the 8K range, but you can't talk about Carlston Harris, who I'm going to talk about in a moment. I think there's a lot of half a dozen other really interesting tournament options in that range. Some could be underowned. So curious who you like in the 8K range this week. Without further ado, let's get into my cash game of the week, which is going to be Carlston Harris at 8.3K. Now, I almost chose another fighter here, but the value is just too good on Harris at 8.3K, who is minus 300 or better to beat Jared Gooden this weekend. Gooden is making his, not UFC debut, but it's a debut for his second stint in the promotion on very short notice. Harris was originally supposed to fight Abubakar Nurmagomedov, but Nurmagomedov pulled out. So Harris minus 300 would be the, let's see, third biggest favorite on the slate or so. Fourth biggest favorite, but he's very, very undervalued from a DraftKings perspective. He should be several $100s more expensive, and he has a theoretical path to a high ceiling, coming off a loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov, but prior to that, 2 first-round finishes, one by knockout, one by submission. Harris can be a grinder of a wrestler. He has takedown ability. He also has power in his hands. Fighting an opponent in Gooden who doesn't defend strikes all that well historically, has eaten a lot of damage, has been knocked out on the regional scene, can even give up takedowns. So it's possible that Harris lands takedowns, dominates, wins by submission, wins by knockout, and simply put, at minus 300 to win 8.3K, he is the best value on this slate. And he's really, really hard to pass up from a cash game perspective. From a tournament perspective, I think there's a good argument to make to play the underdog Gooden at 6.9K, who should be a really awesome leverage option. Because while Harris is, minus 300 to win, he's going to be very, very popular, and there are certainly paths for him to bust, especially considering Gooden in his first stint in the UFC went 3 hard rounds with Alan Jabon, went 3 hard rounds with Randy Brown, and Harris doesn't really fit the mold of a fighter who's going to duplicate that kind of victory. Harris could win by knockout with 1 punch, but Gooden is a pretty decent boxer himself, lands more than 5 significant strikes per minute, and has experience against good competition. He's also a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so if Harris does take him down early, it's not like this is game over for Gooden. And Gooden is going to provide a lot of leverage against Harris in tournaments at 6.9K, especially priced below Merab and Jonathan Martinez. He's just going to be low owned. And if he is able to create space, I think Gooden has a very realistic path to victory against Harris and could definitely outbox him or even win by knockout. So as much as I like Harris, he rates out, as the best value on the slate. I think he's a great cash game target. I will be heavy on this fight in tournaments, and I think I'm going to look to be overweight to the field on Gooden, specifically at 6.9K for the leverage that he provides. All right, for tournaments, I'm looking at the top end, and when I see the 9K range, honestly, my favorite option is at the top in Mario Bautista. And maybe that's not a hot take with him being minus 1,000 to win against Guido Canetti, but Petr Yan is in the 9K range as well. Ricardo Holmes is a good option as well. Williams is going to get some love. So I like Bautista. I think he's kind of a standout target in the 9K range, being a heavy favorite with a minus 245 inside the distance line. And he's just an aggressive offensive fighter with an opponent of Guido Canetti, who is aging, coming off back-to-back first-round finishes, which is really surprising. And I've been burned by Canetti in back-to-back matchups. But I just don't think, his path to victory against Chris Mutino's so hittable, an early knockout there, and an early submission against Randy Costa. I just think Bautista's a better submission grappler. Bautista's definitely a better striker, younger, throws at a higher pace, more cardio, and I think he really has a chance to finish Canetti early in this spot. Again, minus 245 inside the distance is going to be the best line on this slate, and he's expensive. So I don't know if people are going to pay up for him when Petr Yan is 9.2K. It's going to be a challenge to fit both in or to fit Ramos and Bautista in. And I think Bautista coming off multiple wins in a row, 3 wins in a row, 3 100-point scores. Maybe he doesn't put up an optimal score, but I think he has a really good chance to win, a really good chance to finish against a much older, slower opponent. And Bautista is going to be my tournament play of the week for that reason at 9.7K. All right, moving on to my salary play. I want to talk about Alexander Volkov at 7.6K, fighting against probably the very chalky Alexander Romanov at 8.6K. Another good matchup to target. I have plenty of interest in the Romanov side at 8.6K. If Romanov wins, he's going to score a lot of points. He's very wrestling dependent. Good inside the distance line, plus 115 last I checked. And he scored very, very well on DraftKings in wins typically. 112, 134, 67 with a weird groin shot ending. 110 and 128. However, I was also on Marcin Tybura against Romanov in his last fight because I have some major concerns about Romanov in his distance striking, in his cardio especially. And this is a really tough matchup against Alexander Volkov, who kind of thrives in those two areas where Volkov's a lot taller, a lot longer than Romanov. And if this fight plays out at distance, Volkov is just a better kickboxer. Volkov lands strikes at a very high rate, and he's going to have a lot more knockout upside than even Tybura had against Romanov. And so Romanov really needs to take Volkov down early and finish him, which is possible he can do. Volkov defends takedowns at 71%. Didn't look great against Tom Aspinall on the mat. So I'm not discounting Romanov's chances for an early finish. It's just if Volkov weathers an early storm, even a couple minutes worth, there's a good chance that he could get back up to his feet and just have a real advantage on the feet and win by knockout himself. Plus 260 to win inside the distance. That's a good line for Volkov. 7.6K is a pretty cheap price to pay. He's probably going to carry leverage against a very chalky Romanov. So there's a lot of reasons to like Volkov on the slate. There's some bust risk here too, but I think he has sneaky knockout upside, and he will be my salary play of the week at 7.6K. And finally, my matchup of the week, I'm going to go with Cedriques SD Dumas versus Josh Fremd. This has been a hot topic on MMA Twitter this week. Dumas is minus 185 on 5 dimes. I see him all the way up to minus 250. Fremd plus 160 as the underdog. Dumas is 8.8K. Fremd 7.4K. Dumas coming from his street fighting background, young. I think he's undefeated. Let me double check that. Where is Dumas on this slate? I got him 7-0 professionally, so he hasn't tasted defeat yet, coming off a first-round 47-second guillotine against Penaz in Contender Series. That's how he earned his contract. And he's like a really offensively minded fighter. He's got knockout power in his hands. He can be aggressive with strikes early. He's also a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's fighting an opponent in Fremd who just got submitted by Tresean Gore, which is really not a good look. And Fremd comes from a wrestling background, but just got totally out-grappled by Fluffy Hernandez, submitted by Tresean Gore. This is his last chance to remain in the UFC. And it's quite possible that Dumas is just a more dangerous knockout artist, can hurt him, can finish him, or can take him down like Hernandez did, like Gore did, wrap up a submission, and put up a ton of points from a DraftKings perspective. 8.8K plus 115 to win inside the distance. I think he's a really high upside target. He'll get some love, of course, at this price tag, but he's very affordable, multiple ways to score, multiple ways to finish. I think he's a really good tournament option there at 8.8K. Fremd at 7.4K, I mean, you could just argue he's a more experienced fighter. He has a higher pedigree of wrestling despite looking bad in his early UFC career. And again, Dumas has never lost. He hasn't really been pushed that hard. He's fighting weak competition. And if Fremd just went out there, landed some takedowns, tired Dumas out, and even finished him late, I wouldn't be shocked. Fremd is plus 200 inside the distance, which is a really, really good number for 7.4K, and I don't think he's going to be that highly owned. He's also going to provide leverage against Dumas. I mean, these are the types of fighters we're looking for, right? There's the obvious Merab Dvalishvili, Jonathan Martinez is going to be popular, but, Fremd 0-2 in the UFC, plus 200 inside the distance, that's a lot better than a lot of favorites on this slate. I'm not picking him to win, but I do think he has a path to victory, a path to a ceiling, and he'll provide leverage. And I think the winner of this matchup projects to score quite well. So it's one of my favorite matchups on the slate, especially with a minus 300 inside the distance line as a whole. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's UFC Quick Picks. Thank you so much for the support. You can follow me on Twitter, Brett Appley, TTPP, dailyfanmma.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Best of luck in your contest this week. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.